Hello everyone! Last week they confirmed that BlizzCon is going to happen this year, and for those who've been asking me, I will probably be there. It's not 100% certain yet, but I'm going to do my very best to make it happen, and I'm very excited. This will be my first BlizzCon that I've ever been to. Maybe they'll announce a new expansion, maybe we'll get some information about the Warcraft movie, maybe we'll actually get a good lore Q&A, who knows? But it will definitely give me a chance to meet with a lot of people that I've been working with, and of course, it will also give me a chance to meet with you guys and girls. If you're going to BlizzCon, of course. Very excited, but that's still very far away, so let's kill some time by doing a Q&A. First question comes in from George de Vries. Hey Noble, nice Q&A again. I have a question that's been bothering me since the Cataclysm. In the dungeon, the Well of Eternity, we see that the old gods want to protect the dragon soul from Deathwing. But why? In the original story and in the novel War of the Ancients, Neltharion was already corrupted by them, so why do they need to stop him from taking the soul in that dungeon? Keep up the great work. George, this has to do with the old gods' ultimate end goal. It's true that Neltharion, he was corrupted by them, and they constantly whispered in his ears, they fed him plans of creating the dragon soul, ruling the world, the dragon flights, all the desires that he had. The entire world should belong to him, and the old gods just did nothing but whisper. In turn, Deathwing, he manipulated the other aspects into giving up a portion of their power to empower the dragon soul.
It is done. All have given that which must be given. I now seal the dragon soul forever.
That terrible glow. Should that be?
For it to be as it must, yes.
It is a weapon like no other. It must be like no other.
They had a plan in mind to use the Dragon Soul against the vast armies of the Legion. This would be their massive weapon to defeat the Burning Legion, but Deathwing wanted more. He was not afraid to use it against the demons, but he also used it against the Night Elves, he used it against the fellow dragons. He was out of his mind and he loved the artifact, and it's very similar to how Gollum loved the ring in Lord of the Rings. Eventually, the artifact, it was stolen out of Deathwing's lair, it made its way into Illidan's hands, and Illidan, he delivered it back to the palace so they could use it to empower their spell work. They wanted to use the Dragon Soul to empower the portal to bring Sargeras into Azeroth, and Illidan, he wasn't working for the Legion, he was trying to be a double agent, and he was cocky enough to believe that he could use the spell work against them and close the portal. He might have actually succeeded in his plans, was it not for the old gods that actually wanted Sargeras to come. They believed that Sargeras' arrival would shatter their prisons, would let them rule the world once more, so they manipulated Deathwing into creating the device, they manipulated Illidan's spell work to not close the portal, but instead empower it. They placed every little piece just right, but Deathwing, he wasn't willing to cooperate. The old gods had done such a good job at making Deathwing obsessed about the Dragon Soul, now known as the Demon Soul, that he needed to have it. Not even the whispers in his mind could persuade him to step away from it, and he did all he could to retrieve the artifacts.
It is too powerful!
How dare you touch my creation! It is mine! Mine!
Neltharion!
Mine!
What have you done? You have doomed us all to the madness of the old gods!
It's mine!
He is lost to us, sister. He is
The power of the
no
soul is
longer.
tearing him apart!
I will not be denied!
The old gods protect the soul.
In the book you can read that Deathwing actually manages to get his paws on the disc, but then the force of the old gods, they smack him away. The disc slowly falls down towards the well, towards the maelstrom down below. Malfurion, he's able to catch it before either the old gods or Sargeras get their hands on it, and with the disc they reverse the spell and they send the Legion back from where it came from. This ended the War of the Ancients, so long story short, the old gods, they wanted Sargeras to come, but Deathwing, he didn't want to give up his toy, and the greatest puppet turned into their biggest enemy. Next question, sent in by Warlord Khalifar. Can you give us the lore of the SI7? I often receive questions about the SI7, but unfortunately there isn't that much to tell. The SI stands for Stormwind Intelligence, and the 7 is most likely to make it a reference to real-life organizations like MI5 and the MI6. They are an undercover agency sent in on most important or dangerous missions, and their leader is Matthias Shaw. In the past, Shaw was part of the Defiance Brotherhood questline, in which you tried to discover what the Defiance Brotherhood was all about and where the base was located. At level 60 he was part of the questline in which we took out Naphanos Blightcaller, but those quests after the Cataclysm revamp, those quests have been removed. These days we see the SI7 pop up in several locations, like during Mr. Pandaria they were sent out to quickly make their way to Pandaria and try to rescue Anduin.
Prince Anduin, we've come to take you home. Come quietly now.
I'm sorry, but I won't. I'm sure you understand my reasons.
Eh? Oh, you're absolutely right, Prince Anduin. You're free to go as you please.
Come on, let's go.
In Warlords of Draenor, we find several agents captured and tortured, and in the novel The Shattering, they join Varian on a mission to rescue Anduin from Ironforge. In that book, Moira, she showed up after her father was turned into a crystal, and she placed the city under her control. She even went as far as to keep Anduin hostage, but Anduin, he had a Hearthstone in his possession, so he was not really in any real danger. His father didn't notice, of course, so he took a few members of the SI7, he actually joined them, they went through the Deep Run tunnel, towards Ironforge. They went into the city to take care of this threat. Luckily for Moira, Anduin prevented his father from killing her, claiming that even though her actions were wrong, she was still the rightful heir and it would be up to the dwarves to come to a solution. This eventually led to the Council of Three Hammers. That's a whole different story, but all in all, SI7 is simply a team of highly skilled assassins, spies, they stick to the shadows, and yeah, you might wonder what the Horde version of the SI7 is, but I don't think the Horde has one. In Warlords, whenever the questline involves an SI7 agent for the Alliance, then on the Horde side, you'll see Vol'jin Shadowhunters, but I don't think they have an official organization, at least not as far as I know. So there you go, that's the story about SI7. Sorry that I can't tell you much more, but if you want to see who the known members are, I'll make sure to link the Wikipedia page in the description. This big question is sent in by Arvis Liontoes, so I'll just have to summarize it. Liontoes wants to know the story behind the War of the Shifting Sands and what's going on with Ankirai and all the bug creatures, so basically the story behind all of that. Now Liontoes, this story goes way back, around 16,000 years ago, and to give that perspective, the War of the Ancients, the one that split the land of Kalimdor apart, the one with Deathwing and the Demon Soul, that was 10,000 years ago, so this happened before the whole Night Elf versus Burden Legion war. In those days, Kalimdor was still together, and the Troll Empire was vast and large, and their main enemy was the Akir. The Akir, they are insect-like creatures that for thousands of years they battled with the trolls since they wanted to eradicate all non-insect life from the fields of Kalimdor. The trolls, they held their ground, but they never succeeded in winning a true victory over the Akir. They were never able to really take them out. Eventually, due to the trolls' persistence, the Akiri kingdom, it split in half as its citizens fled to separate colonies in the far northern and southern regions. This information is taken from the Twin Empires book that you can find within the game, and the Akir, they are the predecessors of the insect-like creatures we see serving the old gods. The Mentit, for example, in Mr. Pandaria, they are the most recent example, but you also have the Nerubians in Northrend, the Garaji in Anskirai, and who knows what other evolutions we might find in the future. So at this point, the trolls, they managed to divide the insect kingdom of the Akir, and those that traveled south, they found a Titan research station near Uldum. This station was manned by the Tolvir in order of the Titans to maintain the Titan lore, the Titan machinery around the Titan cities of Ulduar and Uldum. As most of you know by now, it were the Titans that imprisoned the old gods, it were the Titans that shaped the world of Azeroth. The prophecy of Cthulhu, it speaks of a battle in the land of Silithus, in which a battle between a Titan and a being of unimaginable evil and power, it raged on. It's unclear about whether or not the Titan was vanquished in this battle, but it illustrates that the Titan did fall. An old god had also fallen, or so it was thought, since this old god was actually Cthulhu, and Cthulhu was not ready to give up quite yet. At this bit, the lore gets a little bit fuzzy, a little bit contradicting, because on the one hand, we have the lore about the Akir that ransacked Ankirai and took it for themselves. Well, this prophecy, it states that Kafun, he found creatures known as the Siliphids, and he reshaped them into his own image. These avatars were to be known as the Karaji, so one explanation could be that Kafun, he found the Siliphids, and the Silifid would be known as the Akir, or the Akir and the Silifid, they're one and the same, just spoken about in different names. I would personally go with the last explanation, since the prophecy of Kafun, it's lore from classic WoW, and the whole Titan versus Old God bit, it seems to be inaccurate. For example, it states that an Old God was vanquished, but Kafun is still there. It says that a Titan has fallen, but so far we haven't found a Titan in Silithus just yet. Not to mention that it could be added, of course, but so far the prophecy of Kafun doesn't really seem to be accurate. Regardless of which version is true, we know that Kafun, he wanted revenge. The insects, they took over Ankirai, the area where Kafun had supposedly fallen, and these insect creatures, they would worship and work for the old god to get his revenge. Around 1,000 years ago, the War of the Shifting Sands, it fired up, and it was the Night Elves, led by Fendrel Stackhelm, that tried to hold the line. Fendrel was such a talented leader that the Karaji, they gave him a name. They called him Karsis, which means Hand of Earth. The Karaji could not beat him and the Night Elf forces that he led, so the twin emperors, Vegnilash and Veglor, they ordered General Rajax to find a way around the Hand of Earth, some weakness that they could use, and this weakness was his son, Volstan. A small attack was ordered upon Southwind Village, while the front lines of Stackhelm's army, they were being kept occupied. Volstan was eager to please his father, to prove his worth, so with his permission, he took a small battalion and they went to the defense of Southwind. They figured that the battle was going their way, that there was no way that they could lose, but they were mistaken. Karaji forces, they were hiding away, Volstan, he was captured, and Rajak himself, he took Volstan to the front lines. In front of his father, in front of the Night Elf forces, they brutally executed the young Night Elf, and this broke Stackhelm. He lost his son right there. His will and motivation to fight, it was gone. And the Night Elves, they were forced back through Unguro all the way to the borders of the Tanaris Desert. The Night Elves, they realized that if they didn't do something quick, then they would lose this war, and not only this area, the entire world would be in danger. They approached the Bronze Dragons, and namely Anacrones, at the Carriage of Time to ask them for their aid, but at first the Bronze Dragons refused. They didn't want to mingle themselves in the affairs of the so-called lesser races, not until the Karaji, they were foolish enough to attack even the caverns themselves. Now the war was also won for the Bronze Dragons. They joined the fight, but still it wasn't enough. They called for the Children of the Aspects, and it was Merifra of the Dream for the Green Dragons, Kelastras for the Red Dragons, and Eragos for the Blue Dragonflight that answered the call and joined the war. Their combined might was able to push back the Karaji forces, but for every 10 of them that they killed, 100 were standing ready to take their place. Eventually, they decided that in order to contain this threat, for the good of Azeroth, they would have to build a magical barrier around Anki-Raish and turn it into a prison. Merifra, Kelestras and Argos, they held the forces inside, while Anachronos and Stackhelm, they cast their spell. For many years, the magical barrier held. The dragons, the Children of the Aspects, they were captured inside, until Kafun's forces, they managed to slip past the wall, and the time had come to resume the battle once more. The Alliance and the Horde, they worked together on gathering resources, building up a massive army, and they recreated the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, which would allow them to shatter the barrier and step inside the fortress. There they saw Kafun's forces with their own eyes, and one by one, from General Rajax to the Twin Emperors to Kafun himself, none were able to stand against their might. They even managed to save the Children of the Aspects, and even though Kafun was not completely defeated, as we could see in the comics, he later would corrupt Cho'Gall and a whole different storyline, the threat of Anki-Raish was contained and the day was saved. Next up, a question from Kevin Racanelli Rowland. Love the name, Kevin. And Kevin asked, "Hey Noble, can you tell the lore of Terenar and Gidwin, please?" Smiley face. The story of Gidwin and Terenar, it's not a large one, but those that quested through the Plague Lands, you might have tagged along with the Worgen Fiona and her caravan. These two characters, Gidwin and Terenar, they both aspire to become members of the Argent Crusade, and they're making their way to Light's Hope Chapel. Gidwin is a dwarf, while Terenar is a blood elf, and they're most likely a reference to another dwarf and elf that found an unlikely friendship during their travels. They're competitive, they constantly try to outdo each other, and with the help of adventurers, they manage to reach Light's Hope Chapel and become members of the Crusade. At one point, Giddy runs out, and we're asked to go and find him, and we find out that Giddy has been captured by Baroness Anasteri, and she plans to convert the dwarf into a Death Knight. Thankfully for the dwarf, we find him in time, we stop Anasteri, and we save the day. This storyline, it was added with the Cataclysm revamp, and later on in the expansion, we would find Terenar, Fiona, and Giddy. They helped us out with defending Sevria's roosts. That's about all they did in the expansion, but their story isn't done yet. With Warlords of Draenor, the Dark Portal, it turned red, and some way, somehow, Fiona's caravan, it simply stepped through, as all the Iron Horde forces were waiting for them, it stepped through the portal, and they continued their storyline. This time, we found them in Shadowmoon Valley, where several members of the Arctic Crusade, they've been captured by the Botani, and Terenar and Gidwin, they were attacked while fishing. The Draenei were able to save their butts, but Gidwin has been poisoned, so we gather some ingredients, we help Fiona with creating anti-venom, we save the Arctic Crusade members, and we once again save the day, and this time Fiona decides to join our garrison as a follower. Like I said, not a big story, but there you go. Which brings us to the final question of today, and one which I would also like your opinion about, because it's more of an opinion question. Hey Noble, love the vids. Just wondering what you think of this idea for use of legendary items in World of Warcraft. Since Blizzard is adamant about not letting you transmog into or out of them, why not let them become account-bound heirloom legendary items? Would love to hear your thoughts on this subject from Jonathan Palmer. Jonathan, if I understand your question correctly, you would want Blizzard to turn legendary items into heirlooms so you could use them while leveling up. I hope I got your question right. I think this is a great idea, to be honest, and it would add a use for old heirlooms. I'm against using heirlooms simply for transmog, and that's because if you've ever seen private servers in the past, everybody is running around with legendary weapons. You're like, meh, everybody has them, so they're not really legendary. So at max level, I would have something against it, but this is only while you level up a character, and I think that would be really cool. Imagine running a low-level dungeon as a rogue or a warrior, and you got the twin blades of Asenov on you. You're there slicing up everything, you're looking badass. I think that's great, to be honest. Could be a great conversation starter, like, where did you get that from? It could be a great motivation to visit old content, even at max level. It could give people who see those weapons a reason to, you know, aspire for greatness, aspire to get legendary weapons. And overall, I don't really see a downside to this plan, to be honest. Basically, it's a different skin for the heirloom weapons that we have. You could say, like, these are legendary and you shouldn't be able to use them even though, you know, everybody has them. I've got a couple of legendaries just sitting in my bank. How much cooler would it be if I could actually use them, you know, instead of for RP party where I can dress them up for 5 minutes and not really use them. This is my opinion though, and like I said, I would love to hear from you, from the viewers. Let me know what you think about this plan. Should Blizzard implement this? Should they add heirloom legendary weapons that you could use while leveling up? Let me know in the comments down below. What is your pro, your cons? What do you think about this? I can't wait to read your opinion. Right everybody, that is the end of the Q&A, so thank you all very much for watching once again. As always, if you have questions that you would like to see featured in this Q&A, then you can leave a comment down below, or you can send it in over at ask.fm, and I might use it for the next Q&A. I also have a beautiful list on DeviantArt full of the questions that I've done in the past, so give it a look. I might have already answered your question before. Links to all of that are in the description. You can also find a link to my Twitter, my Facebook, my Twitch, all the places where you can stalk me, and yeah, I think that's me done for today, everybody. Very excited about BlizzCon, like I said at the start. I can't wait for November. I really hope that I can get to go. I really hope that I can take that holiday. I really hope to see you guys there. Anyways, have a great week, everyone. And until next time, guys. See ya!